Okay, Wales against the Netherlands has just finished at the Women's Euros. The Dutch win 3-0, but they were laboured at periods in this game. They were much better in the second half than the first half, and they could have scored more goals. They hit the post twice, or I think they hit the bar in the post, but until Miedema gets her goal, the Dutch were very laboured. They had a lot of possession, and they were playing majority of the game in the Welsh half. And they're creating small openings, but they weren't really. There was no real cutting edge, and the Welsh were very, very good defensively. I will say this: the Welsh kept their defensive structure very, very well. Miedema obviously is the main threat, and they kept her isolated. She barely featured in the first half, and then when she scores her goal, they just gave her too much space. They backed off, which dangerous thing to do. Bit of a defensive lapse, not getting close enough or tight enough to reduce that space. I mean, she has time to control the ball and get on her favoured foot. It's a brilliant goal, and that's right on the stroke of half time. It's 2 minutes into added time at the end of the first half. And Wales had defended really well up to that point. Now, I do think the heat and humidity is really still having an impact in this tournament. There were compulsory water breaks because it hit that 30°C threshold. And bearing in mind, they're an hour ahead in Switzerland, so this is early evening and it's still above 30°C. That tells you how warm it has actually been on continental Europe. Although the heat's moving slowly further east, the Switzerland's right in the middle. It shows you how the heat and humidity is impacting this tournament. I think it's had an impact on every single game. But as I say, the Welsh had played well up to that point, mostly in defence. They had a few flashes in attack. But mostly defensively, they were very, very good in their structure. They did block the passing lanes. They did put pressure on the player in possession. There were some physical challenges going in as well, which I think we see more in the women's game than the men's game. It's one refreshing thing about the women's game is we don't see a lot of diving and simulation that we see in the men's game, which I think is the bane of the men's game. But that goal at on the stroke of half time by Miedema, I think that is the momentum swing, because straight after half time they're 2-0 up within 2 minutes. Pavlova with her goal, and I think that just knocked the stuffing out the Welsh, because Bruce on 57 minutes again, they're starting to tire. It's 3-0. The Dutch, even in the build-up to the third goal, hit the post. They could have had more goals. I think the Welsh ran out of steam a little bit in the second half. I think this is where doing a lot more defending and not having enough time on the ball themselves, I think has had an impact when you're playing without the ball in warm, humid conditions like that. That is exceptionally energy-sapping. Obviously, the Dutch were dictating the pace and tempo of the game because they had the majority of possession. They completed, I think, 5 or 6 times as many passes as the Welsh. But the Welsh, they tried, and they did try. They didn't have many sights on goal, really. But they did show a lot of willing in the first half. But as the second half wore on, you could see they were clearly fatiguing. And the Dutch, obviously, more tournament experience. A lot of their players have been professional for longer. Better systems and structures through their football association and their national setup. You can see that all benefits. That all does benefit. Now, you could also say they've got more big tournament experience. So these players are used to being in an international camp, in a tournament environment as well. That also plays a part. But in the game itself, they managed the game better. The second half, they looked more fluid. I think the Dutch would not be happy with their first 45 minutes. And there were patches in the second half where, again, they were a bit clunky. But for the most part, once they got that first goal, they looked more confident and comfortable, and they eased into their rhythm and their flow, and then they relaxed a little bit more. The Welsh can be quite happy with their first half performance, but they still need to try and keep that focus for longer. They switched off for the first goal, they switched off for the second goal, and that's proven. And they switched off for the third goal. These are concentrational lapses, and I think fatigue plays a part in that. But the Dutch, they get a good win to start their campaign. We've got England-France at an hour's time as I'm recording this video. So England-France is the other big game in the group, and of course a big nation will be crashing out at the group stage. The Dutch have now got that 3-0 win. They've won their first game, which is important. There's still room for improvement. I don't think, as I say, they'll be happy with that first half performance where they did look laboured. They will be keeping a keen eye on the England-France game, because I think that would potentially dictate which of the big nations crashes out the group. The Dutch have got the advantage going into the second round of fixtures in Group D. Whoever wins out of England and France has a very good opportunity also of progressing out of the group. I think the Welsh, this is a learning experience for them. They're going to try and nick a draw here or there. I think that the Dutch was possibly their best opportunity to do that. But you never know. Injuries and suspensions can have a massive part to play. The conditions will have a massive part to play. As I say, at the moment it seems the teams that have adjusted best to the hot, humid conditions via where they place their training camps, warm weather training, their warm-up games, seem to be playing better and getting the results. We've still not had a draw in this tournament. We've still not had a goalless draw in this tournament. We've also, I don't think, seen a goal from a free kick yet either. So there's some oddities in this tournament so far. Every game's had goals. We've seen a lot of clean sheets so far. So it's very interesting. But there we go. That's the Netherlands-Wales. And, of course, we've got England-France coming up very, very shortly. So from me for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. And I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.